Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today Master League Henry has returned. After not playing Master League this entire season so far, today I'm getting back into the swing of things. Today I'm featuring Gholdengo, a Pokemon with an incredibly cool typing, Ghost Steel, that's able to fully wall off all moves from the Crown forms, and additionally is a very effective answer to both Lunala and Dawnwings, two Pokemon that are very common save swaps at the moment. For the team around it, I'm using Kyogre on the lead as it's another Metal Claw resist, and my own Zacian in the back. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Great lead in game number 1, Kyogre into Zacian, opponent safe switches into Lunala, and it's time for Gholdengo to shine. Gholdengo is going to get a very aggressive one shield farm down here, exiting with a ton of energy, and Gholdengo fully walls off Zacian as well, so it's not like Zacian can ever farm down. Zacian will take quite a lot of damage. My opponent realizes this, so they are going to end up sending in their final Pokemon, which is Zygarde. Zygarde will be able to absorb these Shadow Balls, but the bad news for my opponent is that they're not going to be able to Dragon Tail down. Gholdengo is a bit lacking in stats compared to many of the other meta Master League Pokemon, but it's hard carried by its typing. Its typing has incredibly good resistances. My opponent is on Bulldoze. I bring in Zacian. They're going to pivot into their own Zacian, and now I get to send out Kyogre, and Kyogre is going to be in a really good spot to close out this game. As the Kyogre player, I'm just never going to be shielding. Zacian cannot afford to debuff itself with a close combat, so I can always no-shield, assuming they will go for the Behemoth Blade. And now, my opponent is forced to fire off energy, or I could make it to another Surf. They will finally go for the close combat, and I can just bring in my Zacian and fully farm down. My opponent already showed that they have Bulldoze on Zygarde. Bulldoze never going to be doing any damage to Zacian, so my opponent will resign the match. After a few warm-up sets where I did go 2 and 3, testing out different combinations of Mons, with this team I ended up going 4 and 1 and then 4-0 and 1, so overall a win rate of 8 wins, 1 loss, and a tie over the 2 sets that I'll be showcasing here today. So I feel like the team ended up working out really nicely. Kyogre Mirror is always a bit awkward. You could definitely run Thunder on Kyogre. I just already have Blizzard and didn't want to use any TMs. My opponent here is going to bank energy and save switch into Zacian, and to me this is a massive mistake, because Zacian has a very poor matchup into Kyogre. They're just going to lose their entire Zacian unless they burn a shield, and if they burn a shield, I'm just always going to stay in with the Kyogre, because they can never farm down. Kyogre is a Pokemon that I really did not care for in previous iterations of the Master League. I called it the RPS whale, because, in fairness, it was very alignment dependent. But now in a meta ruled by the Crown forms where it's a lot more difficult to run dragons, suddenly Kyogre actually has quite a bit of neutral play. Here Kyogre is going to win charge attack priority over Gholdengo. Gholdengo is going to absorb the Surf and return fire with Power Gem. Power Gem is going to land quick switch into Zacian. We get the farm down and my opponent is going to resign the match. We move to the next match, and it's a great lead. Kyogre into Landorus. Opponent stays in, throws a Mud Shot, save switches into Urshifu, and this is actually the Single Strike Urshifu. Rapid Strike Urshifu is more common, but I did see a few Single Strike Urshifu here and there. Now, the moment they sent in the Single Strike Urshifu, what I should have done is just brought in Zacian. Zacian has a very dominant matchup there, because the Single Strike Urshifu does not have a Metal Claw resist, and due to the fact that Sucker Punch is resisted, even after landing a Dynamic Punch, they're not able to get a farm down. So that's what I should have done, but I have not played Master League for quite some time, so I don't really know the matchups too well. I'm kind of learning as I go, so I end up staying in with Kyogre, and Kyogre ends up losing this matchup, which means I have now lost switch advantage. That's really not great, as that means that I'm going to have a Landorus landing a Sandsear Storm onto my Zacian. The good news for me is Zacian will absorb this no problem, and even at -1, a Behemoth Blade is a terrifying move. Opponent tries for a catch onto Ice Fang Zamazenta, and now it's time. In comes Gholdengo. Gholdengo able to completely wall the moveset here from Zamazenta. They're going to go for Behemoth Bash, and that's not a problem for Gholdengo whatsoever. Gholdengo is going to get to fire off the Shadow Ball. That's going to connect big damage onto Zamazenta. Zamazenta is forced to fire off another move. They go for another Behemoth Bash, and we simultaneously KO, which is perfect for me, because by switching out the Zacian, I reset my attack drop, Behemoth Blade picks up the KO, and we're able to get the win. Moving to the next match, Kyogre against Zygarde. Now this matchup, I don't really want to switch in Gholdengo because Gholdengo does very poorly there. So my plan here is I'm just going to stay in with the Kyogre. Kyogre can absorb any move they throw here, and then I will get to threaten a Blizzard. Now, it's always a tough 50-50, whether I full send or whether I bait. I decide to full send here. I think they're going to call it. The Blizzard gets shielded, I send in Gholdengo, and my goodness, that is really not ideal. That's so much energy down the drain. It's part of why, in a lot of scenarios, I don't really like full sending nuke moves, because if it gets shielded, losing that much energy and getting no value out of it oftentimes puts you really far behind in a game. Now, I have a Kyogre with 0 energy. It can basically only be used as a sack swap. At long last, Zygarde will get knocked out. I am pretty close to a move on Gholdengo. Opponent's going to send out Ho-Oh, and I'm going to fire off the Power Gem here. Will they respect it? Do they know about Power Gem? Yes, they do. They will commit the shield and get a farm down. Here's where having a bunch of energy on Kyogre would be really nice, but since I full sent, my Kyogre is completely energy dry. In the back, it's going to be an end game where it's Urshifu versus Zacian. Urshifu will go for the Dynamic Punch, and this is the Rapid Strike Urshifu, which means that my Metal Claws are actually resisted here. I'm going to fire off the close combat. That's going to land. Urshifu hangs on and farms me down, and that's just going to be a game loss for me. I think the game was probably lost when that Blizzard was shielded, but man, that was a bit of a tough team comp. We move to the next game, and what is this doing here? Talk about a blast from the past. There is a Mewtwo on my screen. Mewtwo has just been extremely power crept out of the meta, but honestly, I think I really didn't care for the meta when Mewtwo was very strong, so overall, I'm not too upset to see Mewtwo power crept into oblivion. Here, I throw 2, wait a turn, catch the Psy Strike, and sneak a free Astonish. That is very clutch. My opponent is now going to bring in their own Kyogre. I'm only going to get to 1 move, so I'm going to go for the move where I get same type attack bonus. I'll fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball lands, getting Kyogre low, and now I'm just going to bring in my own Kyogre to force my opponent to throw energy. They will fire off energy here, and then I can set up a farm down with my Zacian. Zacian is going to have to sweep. I'm going to be up energy and up a shield. Come on, Zacian. Let's see what they have in the back. They're going to have their own Zacian. I farm up a ton of energy. They switch into Mewtwo, and I fire off the close combat right before they get their Psy Strike. Close combat will pick up the KO, and with 2 shields to hide behind, I know that I can just get 2 close combats here and win the game, because my opponent would somehow have to get to 3 moves, and Zacian just can't hold that much energy. So I get to fire off the back-to-back close combats, and we're going to take this win with actually both Protect Shields still intact in this game. We move to set number 2. Very nice lead, Kyogre into Zacian. They save switch into Urshifu. It's the Rapid Strike Urshifu. And what I should have done once I saw it was the Rapid Strike Urshifu is just send in Gholdengo, as obviously Astonish will do a lot to this Pokemon. And on top of that, their counters are going to be resisted. I try and get to the Power Gem, but my opponent will not let that happen. I gave them too much of an energy head start, so now I'm forced to go down a shield. I do have energy on the Kyogre, which could potentially be useful later on, but it's really not ideal to play it how I've played it. Again, definitely had some rust in the Master League, as I have not played it yet this season. They're going to fire off an Aqua Jet. I will get a farm down. I actually intentionally wait there. That was an intentional pause to limit the farm of the Zacian. So I paused, let them get me to basically 1 HP, so that way they only get 1 Metal Claw of energy head start. They're going to try for a catch onto Palkia, but it's just not going to happen. And Zacian will be able to very effectively clean up this game. I'm going to farm up, building to the Behemoth Blade. I will go for the bait here just because I'm expecting my opponent to shield because they can't let a close combat land, and by baiting with the Behemoth Blade, now my defense is not debuffed, so I can very comfortably absorb multiple Aqua Tails. So they get to fire off the Aqua Tail, but since my defense has not been debuffed, that's a very comfortable survive for the Zacian. Now I will get to unleash the close combat. That's not going to pick up the knockout here. My opponent will get a last second charge attack, but they just have no way of beating the Kyogre now. So I get to send in Kyogre, and my opponent is going to resign the match. We see a familiar foe in the next match, Kyogre against the Zygarde. Now Zygarde, last time I played it, I built up, I full sent the Blizzard, they ended up shielding it, and I really felt like wasting that much energy ended up being game losing for me. So this time, I am not going to full send. I'm going to go for the bait, grab the shield, and then I have Kyogre energy if I need it later on in the game. So I bait with the Surf. This opponent calls the bait. Oh my goodness. The bait calls are just not with me today. Zygarde will fire off energy. It is going to be the Bulldoze onto Gholdengo, and out comes Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh will have to respect a power gem here. This is double super effective damage, so at the very least I'm able to grab a shield, but unfortunately I will not get a second power gem. I do have energy on the Kyogre, but if my opponent realizes how weak I am, and by me shielding the Kyogre, they should know how weak I am, they should basically just shield this Ho-Oh, and then I probably just lose. So I fire off the Surf. My opponent actually doesn't shield it. In the back, they have Lunala, so they're going to try and sweep with Lunala. Lunala, known for its incredible neutral matchups, but Zacian can do quite well against it. The Shadow Claws obviously add up quite a bit, but so do the Metal Claws. I'm going to shield because I need to force my opponent to throw again, just so that way I can maximize as much damage as possible. I know the Zygarde should be 4 off a move, which means I need 1 residual past the Behemoth Blade. I have to watch for the catch. There's the catch attempt onto the Zygarde, but we farm to 100 energy. We triple resist those Dragon Tails. Close combat, KOs the Zygarde. Behemoth Blade will knock out Lunala. A bit of a scary endgame, but with perfect energy management, that's gonna be a win. Another great lead, Kyogre into Zacian. Safe switch into Dawn Wings. That's not the Lunala that I have been seeing a few times, but we will absolutely take this alignment. They're able to force a shield, but Gholdengo is just so annoying for Zacian. Zacian's gonna have to throw energy here. They can never farm down. We get big damage with the Shadow Ball. My opponent should probably just go for charge attack priority here, and they will do just that. I'm down a shield, but Gholdengo is basically KO'd 2 Pokemon by itself. I bring in Zacian to get the turn head start as they're going to pivot out, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Kyurem Black, and this game is already over. A rare dragon type here. The main dragon that I was seeing is Zygarde, which is obviously fine for Kyogre because Kyogre at the very least hits for neutral there. But we do see a Kyurem, and this is just a slaughter. I never landed a charge move on this Kyurem. I just farmed it down with Metal Claw. Zacian is just absurd. Zacian able to fully farm down Kyurem, and my opponent is going to resign the match. We see another Lunala, Kyogre versus Lunala in the next game. I have a pretty straightforward plan in this lead, and that's to absorb a Shadow Ball, bank energy, and then safe switch into Gholdengo. Gholdengo will probably land an Astonish or 2 before they pivot out. My opponent actually stays in with the Lunala, a very interesting play pattern. They sacrifice the entire Lunala in exchange for forcing a shield. They are able to save the Lunala, and out comes Palkia. Palkia is a matchup where Gholdengo is far worse than it ever should be. Palkia does win the 0 shield and the 1 shield, but like from this health range, I should get knocked out by Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to land, I survive on 1 HP, but I just get Dragon Breath down, but now in comes Zacian. After looking it up, it looks like a close combat does about 55% to Palkia, so very good information for me to have for the future. Since they're in the yellow, I know close combat will KO. They should just let the Palkia go and then save the shield for their final Mon, but them shielding is honestly odd. That telegraphs to me that they're going to try and catch, so I'm just never going to throw my move. I'm just going to keep over farming. They try and catch onto Lunala, and by shielding, they just made it really obvious that they were going to try for that catch, so I'm able to hold on to energy. In the back, they have their own Zacian, and I farm up to the back-to-back close combats. As long as my charge move shows up on Zacian, this is a guaranteed win, but I was playing on really sketchy Wi-Fi, so instead of knocking out, I actually go for an undercharge here, because I don't want to give the Palkia farm. If Palkia can make a move into Zacian and my move doesn't show up, I'm going to lose, and I'm playing on public Wi-Fi. So I end up making kind of a weird play to try and compensate for the fact that I was playing on public Wi-Fi. I get the knockout with the close combat, and it ends up being a tie. I should have just played to the guaranteed win con, but considering I was playing on really rough Wi-Fi connection, I did not want to risk that charge move showing up. So that game should have been a win, but it does end up as a tie. And in the final match, we get just the most perfect alignment we could ever ask for, leading Kyogre into Shadow Rhyperior, and there's a Zacian save switch that gets fully shut down by Gholdengo. Gholdengo unfortunately wasn't able to farm up enough to where I can make a move into the Rhyperior, but their switch clock is not yet up, so I bring in Kyogre instantly. I'm anticipating their third has to be a water resist, so I'm just going to let Kyogre go. I assume it's going to be Palkia, but that is not Palkia. That is going to be Urshifu, and it's actually the single strike Urshifu, which means I should just be winning this game. Against the single strike Urshifu, as long as you don't debuff yourself with a close combat, then you should just be in a winning position, because to my knowledge, I don't believe they can Sucker Punch into a range where a Dynamic Punch will actually KO. I'm going to keep spamming out these Behemoth Blades. Obviously, they're going to be shielding everything, but I'm dealing such great fast move pressure with Metal Claw that I should just be in a winning position. Dynamic Punch lands, I can survive that. They try and snipe down with the Rhyperior, but I can erase them with a Waterfall, and then I have a Surf loaded for the Urshifu. Surf lands, down goes Urshifu, and that's our 4-0-1 set. All in all, I actually had some fun today in the Master League. I intentionally did not play Master League because obviously for this whole season, anyone who had gone to the in-person events already had the crown forms, and I wanted to kind of wait to learn the meta once I was on an even footing and also had the crown forms myself. And day one, I think that Kyogre really surprised me. Kyogre, as I mentioned earlier, it's a Pokemon that I've bashed a lot in the past because when every team was either ABA Dragon, ABB Dragon, or AAA Dragon, it really felt like Kyogre was a massive liability. But suddenly, we're in a meta where it's a lot more difficult to be a Dragon type. Dialga, at least in higher elo, is functionally extinct because of how terrible of a matchup it is into the crown forms, and we see a lot less Palkia as well, and it seemed like a little bit more Zygarde, and those are all meta conditions that favor Kyogre quite a bit. Obviously, Kyogre not a big fan of the Water Rapid Strike Urshifu, so that's a meta condition that doesn't favor it as much, but I really feel like there's a lot fewer resistances to water in the meta, and resisting Steel is suddenly really important with the crown forms having just absurd neutral matchups. So I'm actually a really big fan of Kyogre in this meta. I think it has more flexible play than it ever has, which is really nice. And considering the crown forms are basically on every team, if you have multiple checks to the crown forms, you're probably going to be in a pretty decent spot. And I think that's largely what ended up helping this team work out so well. Not only was I able to, over the course of a few sets, kind of learn the meta, the matchups, the counts, stuff like that, but having a Pokemon on the lead like Kyogre, beating the crown forms, having a safe switch in Gholdengo that could also effectively answer the crown forms as well, and having my own crown Zacian in the back, the crown forms just really felt like they didn't have anywhere to run, and I feel like that's a winning strategy here in this week of the Master League. With everyone testing out their crown forms from Global, if you build a team that is strong into the crown forms, I think that's a really nice recipe for success. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching the content, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.